away from NC State,
Yep.
and then I guess you decided, hey man, I'm not going to play pro ball. You decided to get in coaching. What was that decision like when you
Now,
made
I'll
it?
be honest with you. I remember having a very candid conversation with my college coach, Herb Sendek, on a plane ride home.
Awesome. Yeah.
Played at Florida State. I'll never forget it. We played
Mhm.
at Florida State on the road. We won the game. We were coming home after the game, and I don't know how he must have been bumping around the plane or whatever to talk to the players, but he kind of sat down with me at that point. We were coming down into the spring. We were having a good season, and he just kind of asked me, "What do you think you're going to do when you finish up?" And I had already decided I was done playing.
Yeah. Mhm.
I felt like that would have been a road for me that I would have tried, did it, and then at the end of the day had to come back and start over anyway.
Right. Mhm.
I said, I feel like college basketball. I feel like coaching. I feel like the game at some level. I don't know how I would leave it, but I would like to coach. And
Right.
he gave me a great opportunity. He gave me like an office intern job at the time. It would have been,
Awesome.
it had to be an intern at the time because I don't know if graduate assistant worked, but
Yeah.
that's where he kind of gave me a shot to be around the everyday office life. You get
Mhm.
a chance to see the coaches, not the
Yeah.
players. And then you
Exactly.
realize, as mad as you were at the coaches every day, they're probably just as mad at you when they're up in the office every day.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
No, I agree.
You're
Hundred
down in
percent.
the locker. You were down in the locker room all those times, having all those conversations about coach, blah blah blah.
Right.
You
They
changed
saying the same stuff up.
same stuff. You know what I mean? It's like it's no different. So,
Right.
but it was good to be in the office around Coach Sendek because he just forced even me at a very very young age, like how organized, how on top of things you better be. Staff meetings, you got to have your ducks in a row in terms of what your
Yep.
responsibilities were. So he gave me that opportunity right there, and that's where it got started.
Any aspiring Hoosier out there who would love to get into coaching, what would be your advice to them?
Well, I think the first thing with coaching is, and I always say this, you're you're very rarely going to get hired because you're really good.
Right.
You're going to
Right.
you
I
could be
learned that. Yeah.
really good, like really good coach, great with players. You could
Yeah.
recruit, you can do a lot of good things. But the key is like who do you know? Who do you really know? Who are you
Right.
attending? Because I think how as it goes, your circle gets, shrinks as you
Yeah.
get older in coaching. It doesn't really expand. You keep guys really tight, and you keep your
Yes, sir.
ones that you really trust. At the end of the day. So I would say young people growing up have to find a way to network, meet people, be involved with people to show these guys that like, hey, this guy's really good at what he does. I think that's probably so key for like graduate positions. They get a chance to get in
Yeah.
there and they can really work at it. Where, I think the one holdback in the college profession, if you look back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, when college coaches could go out and work camps and do different things,
Yeah. True.
you just really were able to really be exposed to pro coaches, heavyweight college coaches, or heavyweight basketball people that can speak for you.
Yeah.
And now it's so restricted in terms of what you're able to do out there to branch yourself, to show yourself, that you really kind of get locked in with who you know. And
Right.
to me, that's the biggest deal of coaching and getting in is you got to find a niche of people that you really like. They like you, and you work at it, and then you develop a network. Because if you have no network, man, you could be as talented as you want, but trust and who you know becomes probably more vital than anything.
Absolutely. That's great advice, and I hope you guys are listening. That's it's just the way things are. And people think it's just because you got the greatest X's and O's or you love to watch the most film. It's all about who you know and creating that network. And you definitely did that. You spent a season at West Kentucky, two at NC State, two at Ohio State, two at Arizona, and then you get an opportunity to coach your own team. What was it like getting that first? Actually, let me rewind that a little bit. You had a top 10 recruiting class prior to your first opportunity at Dayton. Who was in that recruiting class at Arizona?
Oh man, I think that the recruiting class that we had got right before I left was I think Nick Johnson's year.
Okay, I remember him. Yeah.
So Nick Johnson, Josiah Turner, Sadiki Johnson were committed.
Yeah.
I think maybe even Angelo Chol may have committed late in the spring after I had already left that first class. Nick ended up being an All-American at Arizona. That first year I had a great relationship with him, but I had a great relationship with the kids at Arizona when I left. And that's the
Mhm.
thing people don't really, you move on, man. And when you move on, it's kind of like you just erase what you were doing for the rest of your life. And then you kind of
Exactly right.
scratch. And like when you go from, like you said, you go from Western Kentucky for a year.
Mhm.
I recruited Courtney Lee, at Western
Ooh,
Kentucky. Anthony Blake,
yes.
we had a great team. Like
Yep.
you move on, and then you go to the next place, which was NC State, Arizona State. I'll never forget it. And we got to Arizona State. I'm in Phoenix for the first time in my life,
Mhm.
West Coast, and like I think maybe second, third day on the job. We were going to sit in front of this kid. And after California coach was going to bring over Reggie Morris was going to bring over one of his players. It was just
Right.
a decision. He was being recruited a little bit by the Pac-10 at the time, but he was going to probably make a decision on Kent State or Miami or Florida. And he was an LA kid. And I said, all right, so what's the kid's name? And I'll never forget Coach Sendak said, yeah, he's got Reggie Morris is going to bring over this kid from Louisiana High School. His name's Russell Westbrook.
Oh,
I said, all right, let me look him up. Let me see what he was. Let me see.
right.
Yeah, he had a couple games of 50. He took an official visit to Kent State. I'm like, Kent State from California.
Really?
I'm like, man, nobody's recruiting him out here. And I'll never forget. We sat and watched film with Russell, whatever. I thought we were going to get him, and then
Mhm.
the deadline hit, and Jordan Farmar decided to enter the NBA draft at
Right.
5. And when he did that, UCLA picked up,
Opened up.
and Russell stayed at UCLA, and the rest is history on
The
that.
rest is history, right? Triple double machine.
But that's what
Hey,
you
I
got to
didn't.
go through when you make these moves. A lot of stories, a lot of people you come in contact with in the recruiting. On and on. Great relationships at every place that I've ever been, really, with the guys that I worked with and the players.
Being one of the top recruiters, is it more difficult to recruit today with all the social media outlets, with all the attention these kids get? Is it more difficult, or is it more difficult, in the late 90s, early 2000s recruiting?
I definitely think there's a different element to the recruiting game nowadays with the
Yep.
social media.
Yeah.
There's no secrets. Back in the day, you used to be able to find your niche and find a couple guys and, bulldog the recruiting a little bit in terms of like the underground, be able to work the kid, work the mom without not everybody's filming them every time he's in a layup line.
Right.
Now
Right.
there's no
I can't
secret.
stand that, man.
Hey, you could find a great player, a sleeper, and the next thing you know, one article goes up and boom, it's just like
It's gone. Yeah, that's true.
instantaneous blow up opportunities for kids.
Yes.
But I think everything is the same in recruiting. At the end of the day, it comes down to how hard you work with the connection to the important people in a kid's life, and then do they believe in at the end of the day what you're talking about. But
Mhm.
I would say it's a lot more distracting, nowadays.
Yeah, for sure.
Really
Yeah.
distracted in recruiting right now. I think kids and families can get distracted with what's going on around them. And
Yeah, that's true.
as you're recruiting, you really have to every article that comes out doesn't mean it's a pretty accurate article, or every
Yeah.
on a kid that comes out, doesn't mean a lot. It's just, oh, he just retweeted this guy, or hey, he just
Right. Yeah.
what does this mean on? Oh my God, like
Right. Right.
you know,
This is too much, man. It's
yeah,
so much. It is so
too much.
much. And then you got to answer all these damn questions. It's like, I don't even know this kid, man. I don't even, it's just so much misinformation out there. Um, you had a lot of success at Dayton, though, and I used to pick you guys in the tournament, especially your last couple of years. You had went to the Elite Eight. I'm like, I'm picking Dayton. I just love the way you taught. I just love the way you taught defense, and the way that you had your guys defending, making plays off the defense, getting out and running. How were you able to create such a culture at a school that was smaller like Dayton?
Well, I think the one thing at a place like Dayton is until you're there, you don't realize the passion for basketball.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's an incredible place to play. I mean, the players there are treated second to none. Their experience there as a student is like it's as good as it gets, and they can be, as they showed last year. I mean, they can legitimately contend for a Final Four moving forward. I mean, I think with their facilities and everything that they got going on, but we recruited guys that we felt had a chip on their shoulder,
Yeah.
were a little, under the radar, too small for the Big Ten at times. Maybe couldn't shoot quite good enough for whatever.
Right.
And them guys, man, it just seemed like at the end of the day, we were very fortunate as we built that one of our teams, our Elite Eight team, really, to me, uh, bonded, experienced highs, experienced lows, and then experienced the ultimate highs.
Yes,
I
sir.
think when the team of guys that came back off that ultimate high, you know how it is. When you win on the biggest stage, man, you don't forget it.
Right. Absolutely.
Those guys never forgot how we got there and how we did it, and
Yeah.
they stayed. Very rarely are you going to get an Obi. Obi's
Yeah,
a
for sure.
national player of the year at Dayton, whatever it is. But you're going to get really good players that are going to get older. And
Hmm.
if you do it right, and you take a couple impact transfers along the way, that come for the right reasons, you got a chance to have a really talented group, which is what we did, and they stuck together through a long period of time and won a lot of games. And I think
Yeah, you did.
by the time we finished there, I think most of the players that we had there had great experiences. They
Absolutely.
got their degrees, and I'm happy that at the end of the day they have a place that they call home. They all go back there, so it was a good experience.
Hey, I better see me a Archie statue up at Dayton at some point when you done with this thing, because I ain't know what the hell Dayton was until you start coaching there and start making some noise. So I mean that sincerely.
The funny thing about it is, AJ, Don Donaher was is and was still to this day very close to Coach Knight.
Okay.
Donaher coached with Coach Knight in the Olympic Games.
Hmm.
Coach Donaher was there, I guess, probably 25 to 30 years. He won an unbelievable amount of games. And if you look at the players and the teams that he had over the course of the 80s, 70s, 80s, late 60s, 70s, 80s, I mean, they're as good as they were in college basketball. And, with conference alignments, not having football at Dayton, their alignments in different leagues over the course of a couple periods of time really sort of pigeonholed them as a mid-major.
Yeah, for sure.
But they're the furthest thing from mid-major. I mean, when you walk into UD Arena for a game, it's as good as any environment that you'll play in.
Absolutely.
And the town revolves around, basketball. They love basketball.
Absolutely. And with that attention and that the success you had at Dayton, it brought you an opportunity to come to IU and be his 29th coach. Take us back to the night that Dr. Glass called you and said, "Hey, we've chosen you to be the head coach at Indiana University." What was that like? And what, outside of your wife, who was your first phone call after that?
I would say that, I wasn't obviously planning on getting any phone calls. I mean,
Oh, really?
not like you wake up and say, "Boy, I hope somebody calls me today."
Right.
But lo and behold, we did have a couple conversations, and after a couple conversations, it turned into a meeting. And I think once we sat down and talked about Indiana
Hmm.
University, where things are at, where they want them to go, how they wanted to do them, I felt just really confident that at the end of the day, the way we do things would work. We just needed an opportunity to be able to do it, our way. And he did.
Right.
But yeah, when it became sort of official, um, clearly my wife and my daughter,
You're right.
I was actually with my dad at the time.
Okay.
So to be able to tell your dad that you were going to be the head coach
Ooh.
for a guy like him, he's thinking back like that's Bob Knight. I mean,
Absolutely.
so it was a surreal moment, at the end of the day for me and my family at the time.
Nobody warned you about this wonderful, peaceful fan base that was awaiting you with open arms. Nobody told you about them.
The funny thing about it is, I don't get too bent out of shape about people wanting to win.
Right, for sure. I got you. I got you.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you can look at ESPN for the first 12 hours of the day, and I think the only thing they do on ESPN for the first 12 hours of the day is criticize every player and coach.
Absolutely.
Like, this is the world we live in. So, but this fan base right here now, this is basketball 101.
They love it.
They love the players. The tradition is second to none. Game day second to none. And I think at the end of the day, they crave winners. And
Absolutely.
all we're trying to do is be able to make them happy.
Absolutely. You was one of the rare people to get an endorsement for, obviously I read this, but it couldn't be true, maybe not be true. You got an endorsement from Coach Knight. You had an opportunity to meet Coach Knight, and what was your conversation with him like once you received the job from Indiana?
Yeah, I obviously you revere when you're here. You start to get a real sense of the who was here before you. And
Yeah.
make no doubt about it, the imprint of this program and the tradition of the program, all the great players that came here and played, it really starts and stops at some point with him.
Right.
And you have to be able to recognize that. And Coach has been really good to me.
Mhm.
I've had an opportunity to sit down with him, I think maybe once or twice in person. And
Right.
those conversations and some of the things that we've been able to discuss really doesn't center anything around basketball.
Yeah, that most likely.
Most
Yeah.
of the time when you sit down, I think, as you know, with Coach Knight, you start to figure out this guy's really smart.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of the stories that he starts to tell you, and some of the, just the way that he talks, the way he's able to describe moments and time,
Yeah.
it's like you're in awe of him. He also scares the hell out of you.
Right, for sure.
'Cause you don't know sometimes if he's playing with you or
Yeah,
really serious.
you have no idea.
You kind of want to be a little guarded at the time, but
Right.
he was really good to me. And now that he's back in Bloomington, I just at all costs, anything that he needs, we want to be able to help. But we also want him to be happy and just peaceful. You know what I mean? He's earned that.
Yeah. I mean, when you arrived to IU and you wanted to I want to say reestablish the culture, because I felt like Tom Crean did a really good job, cleaning things up. He won some titles, he had some success, but you had to come in and establish your own culture. What are just for us coaches out there, and it's harder today because kids are a lot different. It's hard to establish a culture and really stick with those principles that culture is about. What are some of the steps you had to take to establish your culture at Indiana?
Yeah, I think first you made a good point about Coach Crean. He did a great job here.
Absolutely.
Had great players.
Yep.
Won a lot of games, and did a great job off the floor with the academics and whatnot. So, he deserves a lot of credit for where he finished. And I think, like you said, though, you have to find a way how you're going to be able to do it your way.
Yes.
You're going to have to find a way how to do it with your guys at some
Mhm.
point. I think as we looked at it, we knew very early we were going to have a lot of turnover. We just were going to have graduation. We were going to have recruiting classes, and we were going to get young. And the Big Ten is probably the one league in the country that if you're young, you don't get away with a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Get away with a lot in the Big Ten if you're young, because it's an older league. It's an established league at times.
Yeah.
You can get worn down. You have to battle through your battles, so to speak, to be able to earn the right. And I think that's where we figured out we were going to have to do it. We were going to have to get classes of guys in here. We were going to have to, be able to try to develop fast at times, young people, and hopefully, we can get our situation where our identity on both ends of the floors, starts to become habit.
Right. Yeah.
Develop a habit, the routine, the year-to-year grind. But this is what we do. We're there now. I mean, last year's team. I felt last year's team coming into the season with no preseason all-conference guys, really no double-figure score on the roster, really coming back early with Romeo and Juwan leaving. That we had a lot of different guys we're going to have to put together. And I thought that team kind of gelled and figured it out, had its ups and downs through a difficult league last year.
Absolutely. Difficult.
Figured it out again and started to play really well at the end of the year. And
yeah.
Pandemic doesn't hit, we're playing in the NCAA tournament with a team that had a great schedule that I thought could have played against about anybody.
Absolutely.
The league was so tough. And then, as you're kind of heading into this year, now you're looking finally at some guys that have played minutes now.
Right.
Like Rob Finnessy, who's now played every Big Ten game for the most part without injury, but he's played a lot of minutes in Big Ten games with you now that he's a junior. Al Durham is now a senior who's played with you. So you're starting to see some guys that have now played in the games. Trace and Armand, as two freshmen, played a lot of minutes last year for us. They're back sophomores. So, and then you have you continue to bring in young talent, and you need those guys to be able to mesh with the upperclassmen, which I feel this is a great mesh group. This group meshes well.
And what is it? I feel for coaches today, especially at the power conference schools, who have to try to build a culture in the time of one and dones and people, and it's really just wild west free agency at times when it comes to college basketball today. Explain to the fans who don't understand how difficult it is to build a culture, because when we were coming up, a lot of 4-year players, Coach Knight, I don't think Coach Knight ever had a one and done. I really don't. I have to fact check that, but I don't remember. I think Jared Jeffries might have been the first to
early
leave.
early 90s,
Yeah.
early 90s to mid 90s to late 90s. If you start to think of the great players, I mean, and how old they were,
Hmm.
but Grant Hill was a senior.
He was a senior. Yeah.
Bobby Hurley at Duke was a senior. Um, you look at even the Fab Five, as crazy as it is, they were there 2 and 3 years. Like that would never happen in today's game. And the other thing that's very different than it was, late '90s, early 2000s is the transfer field. So
Yeah, man.
now you have the transfer um, things going on with even giving, really at this stage as we move into next year, a lot of free moving parts all the time. So I think when you're building culture, the thing that helps you establish culture is getting older and guys that have done the battles. Uh,
Yeah.
Nowadays, the thing that's tough is to stay old. Your roster
Right. Yeah.
is changing. Sometimes you get old by taking transfers nowadays.
Yep.
Sometimes it's not as easy to take 4 or 5 freshmen a year. Sometimes it's easy to take a couple transfers nowadays. So you have to really, to me, roster management is
Yeah.
very
You're a GM now.
roster management, man. You're always pigeonholing who's leaving, who's coming. You're
Yeah.
always questioning who could leave, during the year, and then you're
Yep.
looking on the horizon of what can happen to make us better when you have the season end. So I mean, your roster, some cases, your roster doesn't change till the first day of school.
You're right, for sure.
Yeah.
You for all those aspiring Hoosier fans, and Hoosier has fans have the best fan base to me in America because they just love basketball. The state of Indiana, period. When your coaches go out to recruit, what are the non-negotiables you look for in the Indiana basketball player?
I think the biggest thing is competitiveness.
Yeah.
I don't think you can put a value on how a kid competes and how a kid wins.
Right.
There's a lot that goes into that, and
Mhm.
the fabric of where he's coming from in terms of the basketball fabric and his fabric that's around him. You know what I mean? You have to be able to coach a guy that you want to coach your way. You can't
Yeah.
coach your way; it's not going to work, so to speak. But I think winning and competitiveness is the deal. And I think the second thing that we're constantly trying to find is that talent, that transcendent talent that you can see,
Yeah, for sure.
that that you can bring the best out of them, whether that's the weight room or whether
Yeah.
that's your individual, whether that's your style of play, who can fit what we do and get better. You know what I mean? Is this guy right here? Boy, I believe in him because at the end of the day, I know with the way that we shoot the ball every day or the way that
Yeah.
we train in the weight room every day, that this guy's going to be able to really max out in a year or two. So I mean, I think winning and competitiveness is huge. But I think the second part of it is that talent, but also that ability that you feel you can make better.
Now you're an ultra competitor because first people don't understand about you. You were a hooper first, and hoopers are ultra competitive and they hate to lose, and it carries over into coaching.
Yeah.
When with the sensitivity today, have you had to rein yourself in a little bit when it comes to what you say, how you say it, give a little maybe a hug after practice that you normally wouldn't give? Do you find yourself having to do that?
I think everybody has to be mindful these days, how you talk and how you
Yeah.
act. I mean, there's no longer, with, like you said, social media or, what's acceptable, to certain people. Just it isn't like it. You're not going to get tapped on the back of the head, or you're not going to get in a huddle and somebody's going to grab your jersey. You get in trouble for that now.
Right, for sure.
I think that the practice setting is where you have to be yourself. I think in a game setting, players have to play.
Yeah, for sure.
Not that you're not going to, show emotion during the game or whatnot, but I think what you do every day in practice and what you do every day with your guys when you're working at it, that's when they have to see who you really are. You have to be yourself. So we get after it good. But I think there's a balance to it as well. You got to get after
Right.
it. At the same time, like probably the greatest point that's ever made to me is like, you got to be a teacher too, though.
Absolutely.
Find a way to teach. You can't teach
Yeah.
the guy's really talented and you can't teach him how you want him to do it, and that's on you. You got to find a way to teach too. So how do you teach? And sometimes, that's more one-on-one. That's more watching film. That may be you and a kid on the court by yourself where you're comfortable, just kind of explaining things. But definitely have to get after it.
Well, Coach, I got two hugs in my 4-year career. One was on senior night, and the other one was right there, and
Yep.
that's considered a headlock. So I'm a little bit pissed that I didn't get a chance to come up in this area, get in this time period to give me some love, man. It's we Calvert and I talked about that yesterday. When I played, we had three McDonald's All Americans leave at that time, and I was explaining to him. I said, man, it was just a transition time from players like yourself, players like myself, who didn't need that in order to compete and succeed. We just wanted to hoop and win, but we had players that needed a hug, and they needed the love as well as the teaching, and it was just a transition period. Now we're at the ultimate end of it. To now we really see everybody has to change that, and I feel for those ultra competitive coaches like yourself that. And sometimes you need to grab a mug every now and then. Hey, come here, man. Let's look at my face. We in the battle right now. Let's go. You know what I mean? So, but now they can perceive that as abuse, and it's like, damn. Okay, so
I mean, I think that's why you look at guys like Coach K.
yeah,
Look at guys like Tom Izzo. You look at guys that have really been doing this thing a long time that
yeah,
that are able to still be successful because you know how Coach K and Coach Izzo and how competitive they are, and they're able to still be successful now in this time with the great players that they have. And so you got to morph, you got to move around, you got to be able to change a little bit around you every once in a while. But I guarantee you,
absolutely.
guys that play for Coach K, guys that play for Coach Izzo, they probably tell the same stories that they did to the guys that played 20 years ago. It's a little different way of delivering the message, probably sometimes.
Absolutely. I'm good friends with a couple of Michigan State former players, and they would say that Izzo's verbiage was just like Coach Knight's, but the difference was that his assistants and himself, there was always a kind of a follow up to it. There was always a follow up. If something was going on with a kid, the parents would be notified to say, "Hey, man, is everything okay with AJ at home?"
Right.
If something was going on. So that's a way to combat that. And I mean, I'm all for the player coaches and a little bit more love, but we came up in a different time, man. It was like you either do it or you don't. There's
No,
no love.
exactly right. You're either getting it done one way or the right way,
Or
or there is no
or
other way.
get the hell out. And but I'm always mindful of your time, man. Just a couple more questions, man. Especially with the COVID and the pandemic and the social injustices. How is your team faring in this difficult climate, and what things have you done to help them, cope with the players that are affected mostly by this? What have you done to help them cope?
I think very early on, the whole pandemic, it hit. We actually played the night before in the Big Ten
Mhm.
tournament and got canceled the next day of the game when we were supposed to play. So it was sort of surreal that it was all happening. Then the tournament got canceled, and then next thing you know, everybody separated for like 14, 15 weeks straight.
Absolutely.
So in the midst of all the 15 weeks, and then you had the tragedy with George Floyd.
Yeah.
That's so you're dealing with a lot of emotions with young people, and they're spread out from you. They're not around you. Typically, how it goes when you're with your guys and something needs to be done. You get together. So learning how to get together
Yeah, for sure.
like this on Zoom or whatever it may be, and we had a lot of conversations like that surrounding ways to stay busy, ways to stay productive, during the pandemic at home when you don't have the facilities, when you don't have this and that, and being safe and smart,
Yeah.
this thing obviously at that time we didn't know much about, but we're further ahead now. So trying to help them understand what's going on. With the social injustice stuff, I think that just started really with a conversation, like everything. I mean, players need to talk.
Yeah.
Grace Thompson was in Minneapolis at the same time and participated in a couple um, activist, safe and activist opportunities that he had there, and he was deeply impacted by it. Really
Right.
impacted. To hear him talk, to me, really showed the maturity that he had made as a person, just an understanding, explaining it to our players. But we're talking about it a lot. I think
Yeah.
as we head into the season, I think there's a lot of college athletes, a lot of players that stuff's on their mind, just as much as it is with the COVID stuff. I mean, I don't want
Yeah.
one being 1A, one being 1B. I mean, they're all floating around every day.
Yeah.
You have to talk. And the biggest thing is, what they want to do and what they believe in. You have to give them the access to do that in the right way.
Absolutely. Did your coaches find yourself, kind of getting a little closer to the players, getting a little bit more intrusive on how they feel, or are you guys just kind of letting them come to you if the issues
I
arise?
think you try to hit it on the head.
Hmm.
You want to get some things out there sometimes and see how they feel.
Yeah, for
Whether
sure.
that's the social injustices, or whether that's incidents that they're reading about, voting.
Yeah.
Guys on the
Hmm.
board vote. There's all kinds of topics right now that the guys need to bring it to the forefront to see what they think, what they understand. And sometimes they'll bring them to you too. Sometimes
Right.
you got guys saying, "Hey, coach, I think we need to talk about this. We need to do
Right.
that." I mean, you have to do both. You know, it's like a family, man. It's
Absolutely.
like a family. It is. It's like having 12 or 15 sons, and then you got assistant coaches. I mean, you got a big group of people that care. But I would say that once the pandemic really started to evolve, and we started to get further away from each other and further away from it became much more about how's everybody doing, rather than you were staying on your conditioning, stuff like that. I mean, it became much more about how are you handling this? How's your mom doing? Is she working right now? How is your sisters and brothers doing at home without going to school? Are you having to take care of them? There's all kind of things that you started to really think about, on how these guys were being impacted. The normal everyday life had changed so drastically at a young age, um, and they're watching a lot of struggle. And they're watching a lot
Right.
of struggle, whether their families had to stop working, or whether they couldn't go anywhere, they didn't have anywhere to go. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of different things, I think, that put it in perspective of what they're going through, which you need to be mindful of.
Yeah, I think the NCAA it hasn't got enough credit. I think they've made a lot of the necessary adjustments to help our students. And you bring up, and I remember when I was at Northwestern, there was like something that the NCAA allowed you guys to do. So if a player couldn't afford to go home for a funeral or something like that, they're able to fly and do a lot of different things. They were getting food, some were getting payment. The last couple of things, two things I will to talk about are, I know I was when I was in college and I was younger, I was against players being paid. But as I got older, and I said, but I also see what issues being paid could bring. Do you think that college players being paid to play is the answer, or is there another answer for making this equitable for everybody?
I don't know if it's going to solve all the problems, but I will say this, that the game has changed so drastically to television revenue, and the amount of money that's being brought in right now due to the sports.
Hmm.
It makes some sense that the guys that are playing every night on television and doing everything they can for the schools to be able to help themselves with their own name, image, and likeness.
Absolutely. I
Okay,
agree.
paying guys salaries or stipends and all that. I don't know about all that, but I
Yeah, I
know
don't either.
I know all this. If you're a great player at Indiana, and you're an All-American, and they sell your jersey. I'm just putting an example out there. Your
For sure.
jersey's out there for young people to buy.
Right.
Why should you not be able to prosper off of that? That's you. That is
Absolutely.
who you are. That same thing with advertising. Same things with social media platforms right now. How things are growing. In just a fast way that these young guys and girls in general, just that go to college, have a lot of on their plate. And
Yeah, for sure.
just because you play there nowadays for 4 years or 5 years, you get your degree, and then you go on with your life, doesn't mean that time period you shouldn't have something to show for it, in my opinion. Because as you know, a lot of guys, when they're done playing ball, they're done playing. They're not going to play anymore. They're going to have to go earn a living doing something else, whether your education or whatever you want to do. But your time in college, you get that one opportunity. And if
Yeah,
you're able to do it right, you can do a lot of good for yourself. But in the meantime, while it's going on, definitely should be able to help, and should be able to put people in position to be able to, bring bring more positive things to their own lives, through their own name, image, and likeness. I definitely believe in that.
absolutely. I always thought like, hey, it'd been awesome to have 20 grand to once I graduated from IU to access to get my life going, or to, just so I don't have to be out there struggling for a job, but I can actually live a little bit before I get my next job. I think, I do understand the Pandora's box that it opens if you start paying people. Your players will start pulling up in Bentleys and
Right.
you're like, man, where do you
I
get
just
this?
think it's definitely from the outside looking in. I think it's easy for everyone to say, hey, they have student athletes have this right to make money. They should have this right to do it. From the inside looking out, being able to police that stuff and being able to figure out how this is all going to be navigated and monitored. I just that's an answer I don't think a lot of people have, which that's why it's going to such a level of being able to
Absolutely.
figure out, how they're going to pull this off. But it's coming. And I do think at Indiana University, just talking every single day to Scott Dolson, I love the way that they've approached it, just in terms of trying to be at the forefront of
Absolutely.
being one of the leaders in name, image, and likeness. So I really, really like the plan. I love the talks. We talked to Mark Cuban. We talked to a lot of different types of people about
Yeah.
how this can transcend things for your own student athletes in general and the perception around your athletic department. So
Yeah.
Scott's done a great job with that, and the administration's really, to me, giving me a really good vibe that Indiana is going to be one of the leaders in that health.
Awesome. And lastly, man, give the fans would like to know what, give a kind of an in-depth analysis of your first couple weeks of practice, couple practices, how the team's looking, who's shining a little bit, and what we got to look forward to this season if we're fortunate enough to play.
Well, I think that number one, we have a really likable group.
Yeah.
We have a group of people that as you watch them, it would be hard for people to not like them. They like each other. They play for one another. They work with one another really well. Our young guys have fit in seamlessly, and our older guys that are all back from a year ago have really done a really good job, number one, bringing them in. But
Mhm.
I think just in general, we have some guys with some experience, and I think that we have some really talented playmaking opportunities for guys that can really do some things that we haven't been able to do in the past, just in terms of being able to play with some space. I think
Yeah.
that's good. Defensively, I think each team that you have is a little unique, but we have a chance, I think, to be, a quicker team, a team that is more deflection oriented, it's more harass oriented than it is. Hey, we got bigs, we got size, we can protect the basket. We're gonna have to get after it in different ways defensively, but I like this team. I like this group. They're fun to coach. It's nice to go to practice every single day and know what you're getting from every guy. I think Trace has really stood out here in the first few weeks of going.
Yeah.
The easiest jump you make, not easy, but the biggest jump you make is 1 year to year two.
Yeah.
Now he's a second year. He's through that first year, and he's been dominant at times in practice. But we have a lot of improved guys. I
Yeah.
think Trace Thompson's really improved. He's used the off season to really improve his game. He's been able to establish how important he's going to play a role for us. And our young players are all super gifted, and they all have
Yeah.
a chance in their own way to really impact the team. I don't see one player that doesn't have a chance to really contribute this year. So it's a good group. It's going to be a good group to watch. It's going to be a difficult navigation with COVID and
Yeah.
all the stuff that's going on and scheduling. It's been a mess. But if you just erase all that and you just look at your guys every day in practice, you say, you know what, these guys can put a couple of these couple things together and we could do this well. This team can play. This team can play a little bit. So I'm excited.
Excited. We got some knockdown shooters out there. They really improved their outside shooting.
Really worked hard on it, and
That's
a
good.
couple of our returning guys like Al, who played last year, and Rob both finished the season last year, really shooting the ball well. So I think they have confidence right now coming in off the off season. Armand going from his freshman to his sophomore year needs to make that jump.
Yeah, we're gonna be fine. Yeah.
And we have 3 of our 4 freshmen that are on the perimeter, Anthony, Trey, and Christian,
Mhm.
have all shown the ability here in early practices to go on spurts and make shots and do some things.
Yeah.
I think all 3 of those guys are going to be really good players. Jordan Geronimo, in time, is really going to be, to me, a unique player for us as he continues to learn the game and his niche, because he's got a good skill level, great touch, super bouncy.
Yeah.
Right now, he's much stronger, I think, on the rebounding and the defensive end than he probably is offensively. But I think that'll come as he learns.
Absolutely.
Jerome is a big part of this shooting thing too.
Okay.
He was really a freshman a year ago. He shot 41%, I think, in his last 11 games from three. And now that he's got that first year under his belt, coming off the injury, we're going to need Jerome to really be a different type of player this year, especially shooting the ball for us. He's got to space the floor.
Okay, awesome, man. Hey, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me, man. It's great to get to know you, man. This was more about you than the actual team. I'm sure you're going to talk about the team all year, so I didn't want that to be the gist of it, but I learned a lot about you. Great hire and Coach Hunter. I had a chance to meet Coach Hunter, when I was out on the road, and he was one of the few assistant coaches who actually sat down and talked to me, and I always remember that because some was just so wrapped up and what they got to do, or just don't want to give you any game. And Coach Hunter gave me some game, and when I saw it, I was like, that's a great guy, man. So I want to commend you on that as well. And always was happy when you got the job, man. And I think it was between you and Chris Collins, not between you two, but I know Chris Collins had got a call, but I'm like, I like either one, and it was like 1A or 1B, and you and your style, I think, is conducive to Indiana basketball. That starting on the defensive end, toughness, competitiveness. I think that's in a consistent manner, as we talked about. Coach Crean did a great job, in his time there, but just making it consistent to where that's what we see every night, win or lose. That's what we said. I think you're going to bring it. I'm not tooting your horn and saying that because you're here. I thought that from the beginning. So I wanted to get that out there. But, man, hey, have a great preseason, man. I hope we get to see some college basketball, man. And so put this stuff all and put that ball in the basket and get Indiana basketball back in the competitive frame. So we'll be in touch with you, man. Thank you for your time, Coach.
Anytime you need me, let me know. And I appreciate all the good things and whatnot. But as you know, it's a great place. And
yes, sir.
I'm glad you're able to get out here and get a lot of our guys. Hopefully as time goes by, you bring a lot of the old characters back to the forefront.
Absolutely, that's the goal. We're gonna be there to see you, man. I missed you down there at the reunion. You were in a hurry. You guys had a game. You came and spoke to Coach, and you darted out of there because you had a game, so you guys were preparing.
I know COVID really stopped some things this summer, but as soon as things get cleaned back up, I know we're going to have everybody back.
Absolutely. All right, Coach, man. Have a great day, and thank you.
Thanks, man. We'll see you.
All right, peace.